This evening, we are very blessed, as you can see, to have Luang Por Pasanno, our teacher, my preceptor, here with us in person. So Luang Por, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We were hoping to take the theme for this evening to be training, and specifically training monastics. You've been an abbot since the year I was born, since 1982. We're an abbot at Wat Bananachat since for the first of those 15 years, from 1982 through about 95, 96. And then since then, we're the abbot of Abhayagiri for about 20 odd years before passing that on to Ajahn. So you have so much experience relating to how to get other people to try to walk the path. In doing this, maybe just to jump into the first question, you've perhaps trained more monks and been totally crucial in ordaining more monks than pretty much anyone in the Western world. What is so good? What's the benefit of having more monks, bringing more monks into the world?
Well, I mean, if they're decent monks, they really. And you think of the traditional that traditional reflection on Sangha of the worthy of gifts, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They're a field of merit for the world. I mean, they bring blessings into the world, not because they wear robes and have taken on, but because they are embodying the training and really living the life of the possibility that the Buddha gives to us for living a life of integrity, living a life of, say, awareness and clarity, and living a life of wisdom and compassion. I mean, that's in an ideal world, but and inevitably you in the same way that in any family, if you go to a big family, you can have a pretty big range of what different brothers and sisters are like, and the same in a say in a monastic family, monastic sangha. But you really want to be giving the opportunity for people to aspire to something beyond what they would normally do, especially in a kind of a modern kind of scientific, materialistic culture where you don't really have much to aspire to other than oblivion. So it's it's something that is the Buddha is really, this is possible. You can live a life of training, and you can actually train yourself. It's not that anybody is born enlightened or born mindful. It's something that you train yourself, or even born with a sense of virtue and integrity. It's something that you really have to get a feel for and understand, and it's through training in the context of living within a community of like-minded people. Because it's oftentimes I mean, there are people who have lived say a hermetic life and are quite noble, but more often than not, that kind of hermetic solitude leads to some real quirkiness. So it's the so kind of living together, and it's not as if, especially in a communal sangha setting, and even the Buddha himself observed this in the sense that, you know, living together in community and then taking time for solitude. But it's a part of a bigger way of training, and training is, you know, how we live. It's just a lifestyle. And so I think that the Buddha's template of the Dhamma Vinaya, the discipline and the teaching, is the training that sort of functions together to really allow us to really mature and grow as human beings.
Luang Por, there's stories of you taking on into training people who on the surface seem very unsuitable. I think there's one example of you there was a heroin addict at Nanachat who you kind of ushered through some of his addiction, and eventually he gave it up and I think ordained for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
What made you stick with characters like that who seemed initially so unsuitable, and how do you see the secret ingredient that's hiding below the surface in people like that?
I think I just was lucky. Yeah, I know it's, you know, because sometimes you have an intuition that, oh, this person is really, this person has something that wants to blossom out of them, and you try to help them and encourage them and support them to be able to do that. You know, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you've intuited correctly. Yeah, and sometimes you just completely misguided. I wouldn't say it's a magic formula at all.
What have you seen be the key difference in the people who blossom and those who wilt? What's kind of the?
I think the people who blossom are people who are one. I mean, there's a sense of an honesty about themselves and an honesty about their own limitations, and a willingness to acknowledge their limitations, and then a willingness to stick with it. So that sense of a patience or an enduring heart is willing to stick with something, and then a willingness to be honest, because, you know, the reality is it's like Ajahn Chah said this, it's the you know, the quickest way to awakening is just look straight at the heart and just point it right at it. It's a liar. You know, because we fool ourselves all the time. We create stories about ourselves and the world around us all the time, and we believe it. But you know, it's just so important to question that web of deceit that the mind and our moods and our habits, our conditioning conjure up for us, and just being honest. Because sometimes it's, you know, we love to live in a story. And, you know, we create convenient stories for ourselves, and we live in those stories, but to be able to question those stories and look at that honestly is you know, you have to have a certain, again, that sense of honesty, but also a certain sort of boldness, a willingness to challenge oneself.
Boy, there are certain monastic traditions, say like the Pa'ok tradition, where monks will go in and have an interview with their teacher, like every single day, to get meditation advice. And you don't do that. That's not a characteristic of Thai forest Buddhism. Right before we started the interview, you mentioned that you kind of have led and trained others like a duck. Could you expand that that metaphor and
I
say,
was just quoting Ajahn Chah, in the sense he said he tended to teach like a duck rather than teaching like a chicken.
Mm.
And he said that what chickens are lower, so maybe like a hen, because a hen will lay their egg and then they will really look after it, and they'll sit on it, and they'll don't know the English word for
roost.
No.
Nurture.
Well,
warm.
anyway, they really nurture it and really care for it, and whereas the duck tends to, they lay their eggs and sort of wander off and do this and that, and then come back from time to time and sit around for a bit. So he said it doesn't have the same kind of maybe same kind of maternal impulse as the chickens do. But anyway, that's an image that Ajahn Chah used. So I was thinking of that, because also, with, you want to encourage people to, come and see you and ask questions and create venues for people to come and approach you and ask questions. But to me, you want to much more, and Ajahn Chah was like that as well. You have to learn how to teach yourself, and because if you don't learn how to teach yourself, if you're always looking for an authority, then you'll never, you never really mature or flourish, because it's the nature of Dhamma. It's for each wise person to see for themselves, to understand for themselves, and if one is not willing to trust that one's, and especially every day getting, and one, I just can't imagine giving guidance every single day to people. I just get bored out of my mind. You see, but much more importantly, that you want to encourage people to learn how to trust themselves and learn how to teach themselves and learn how to reflect and investigate. So you want to give the tools for people to reflect and investigate. You want to give the tools and the frameworks for people to be considering their practice. But yeah, I don't think it's, in the end, I don't think it's a healthy thing to be, really, what comes to word is, it's, it's in quite a negative connotation of, like really micromanaging people's minds. Besides it being boring for yourself. People have to learn how to, because that's one of the things you really want to teach, give people the tools to learn how to grow up and mature. And that's difficult. We all want to be, we want to be spoon-fed by our mothers.
Coddled. Yes.
Be coddled.
Yeah. Somewhat of a related note. A lot of monks, certainly myself, want to find ways to quantify our practice. Like I count the number of hours that I'm meditating a day, or how many spoons I'm eating of food, or how many hours I'm sleeping at night.
Yes.
And you don't advocate for that necessarily.
No, I've been on this. I've been giving you a bad time for years.
but on that note, how does one kind of how does one measure their practice if they're not counting it in some way? And how do you gauge
I don't think it's a bad thing if you're not getting too obsessive.
Yeah.
Which you have done that.
Agree.
But again, it's sort of looking for tools to be able to, because you want to be able to look at things in a way that you can reflect back and feel encouraged. So, I mean, I don't think there's a black and white answer for this, or an absolutely right or wrong answer for it. But because you do need to find ways that you can reflect back and feel encouraged, and for the most part, I think it's much better to try to be analyzing, or maybe not quantifying, but qualifying
Mm.
the the quality of the heart, in the sense, yeah, are wholesome qualities increasing? Are the unwholesome qualities decreasing? Am I more kind? Am I more grateful? Am I less selfish? And really reflecting on that, rather than having hard and fast, say, well, I'm successful because I'm down to, 8 spoonfuls of food, which is also, those are big spoonfuls.
That's right.
There's stories, aren't there?
There are, yeah.
Luang Por, what's the biggest story you've ever had to see through for yourself? I mean, I'm working on your biography, and you sort of hear about you initially, and you're kind of this superhero Kuba Ajahn, and it's interesting to go through your, you were also failed and flawed, like you were also flawed, like we were or are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what was kind of the biggest? Did you have any moments where you really had to step up in a way that was particularly
Well,
unique?
there's several. There's several areas that I feel that I really had to go. What comes to mind immediately is fear, this overcoming fear, because that's and that might not be the first thing that people think, with um, say me, because I don't come across as a fearful person, but I know how to hide it.
You had ulcers as a teenager from social anxiety or something.
Oh my
Is what
gosh,
I-
man! I was 16. I was already having to take medicine for ulcers in my stomach. But, it's just really social anxiety, self-consciousness, is really that sense of interaction with other human beings was very difficult,
Mm.
and I was very fearful, and introverted, um, and so that. So just dealing with fear, and being willing to challenge that fear. And, especially as a monk, I mean, you can organize your life so you don't have to deal with it, more or less. But I realize, one, just sort of seeing Ajahn Chah, sort of, here's somebody who's, and because he also talks openly about his limitations and difficulties, and that he was willing to challenge them. So that really inspired me to say, okay, yeah, I can do that, and I need to do that. I need to face these different, fears, and then, of course, and fear is a function of delusion. So so delusion is the kind of the fundamental, um, kind of root, defilement. But then, the things that you distract yourself or find justified through delusion, of course, are greed and aversion. And so that, that plenty of, and, I can be quite patient, but I can be quite impatient at times, and I can be really, and I've had, especially because of teaching people and being in a position of leadership, I've had to learn not react and not really point stuff out to people too quickly, or find different ways to do it that is actually going to land, because it's, it usually just creates tension and mutual aversion if you push too much. But similarly, with greed, and just when you're suffering because of say a fear or anxiety, or you fill that hole with desire. So it's and so you cover up your desire. You sort of mute the say the anxiety levels by trying to follow desire, which is not a skillful way to work. So working with those, and just being honest. They're sort of trying to come to the root. Where's the root of this, and how do I free the heart from this basically this stain? And I want to live in a way that is really exemplary and free. I don't want to live under the tyranny of my own, say, anxiety and delusions.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they think of monastic life, is think about it. It's a training in meditation, and something which you've mentioned before as your kind of takeaways from Luang Por Chan, his way of training, was that he was really trying to inculcate, really trying to teach people about virtue, about sila, and right view.
Yes.
How do you inculcate? How do you teach that to other people and get people to develop those things? They're less quantifiable. They're less easy to kind of measure how one's progressing in that. But
well, again, it's sort of that's where you want to be paying attention to the qualities of ease and well-being, freedom from suffering, from decrease of anxiety, a sense of well-being that's starting to be a bit more firm and stable, contentment, gratitude. It's a recognizing when those are actually there, and you realize, oh, this is a manifestation of the overcoming of certain limitations, and again, you don't want to set it up, and I've got to be content and grateful. It's a good way to torture yourself, but it's and it's just coming from an ideal of what you think you should be, but using that experience of say contentment and gratitude as something that really brightens the heart, and you experience a real spaciousness, being able to drop and relinquish, to let go of those stains of the heart and limitations.
Luang Por, if you hear about one of your students thinking of disrobal, what's your approach usually? What will you usually speak to them about, or how will you approach that?
Well, one, just to sit down and try to listen to them, and try to ask them, how they're doing, what are they feeling, what are they thinking, what are they what obstacle are they facing? Is it surmountable? Is it insurmountable? So a lot of it is just being willing to listen, because they're suffering, and sometimes people are locked in, and you just want to support them in a smooth transition. Other times you want to kind of thwart them in some way, and try to get them to look at things from a different perspective, and be able to reflect on the situation that they're in, and see that there could be a way out of that doesn't entail having to leave the robes, because certainly, and I'm biased. I mean, I think I think this is if you have made the commitment to take on this training, it's an incredibly fortunate circumstance in one's life, and you really want to explore it to its fullest, and not sort of turn your back on it too quickly. Try to figure out how to use the situation skillfully.
Somewhat of a related question. What do you think about the practice of a monk taking lifetime vows? Like, intentionally, it's not required in our Thai tradition. In some traditions, like Chinese tradition or Sri Lankan tradition, it's very much the culture that someone is expected to take lifetime vows. Do you ever encourage that, or do you think it's? What do you think about that?
Well, I come from a setting of the Thai cultural setting and the Thai tradition, and there's no expectation of taking lifetime vows, and I think that's really wise, because you've got, just because you make a vow when you're a 22-year-old, shaven-headed, sparkly-eyed novice, I mean, that's stupid. Your mind changes. How do you grow? How do you learn? And what happens when you box yourself in too tightly? I mean, ideals are really, they can be really toxic. So you have to learn how to make this life work for you, and allow yourself to really grow. So to me, the use of or that ideal of taking lifetime vows, there's the rare person who it might be inspiring for them to do, and they're actually able to fulfill it. But I think the reality is that's beyond what most people can realistically assume or aspire to. Much better to figure it out bit by bit and kind of grow and mature in a way that your confidence becomes really internalized. It's not just propped up by an ideal or an expectation that you set for yourself, or the external culture set for you.
Lightning round.
Yeah, well, first we may have, if people want to type in their questions to the chat, we have a bit longer to ask Luang Por. And while you're doing that, we have a lightning round, Luang Por.
Yeah.
So, number one, if you had to choose between, you can't look. If you had to choose between having an overly greedy monk disciple and an overly aversive monk disciple, which would you choose?
Well, you don't get to choose. But that's the reality. You got to take what you got, and you try to help everybody. But they, you usually greedy monks are at least easier to live with.
Okay, so digging into that one, if you had to choose between a monk who eats too much versus a monk who sleeps too much, what would be preferable?
Well, the thing is you can, it doesn't, either one, you can only do it for so long if you're really practicing and living, and it really is they're dead ends in terms of practice. I mean, you can only eat so much, you can only sleep so much. It just doesn't satisfy anymore.
If you're at Abhayagiri, you have to hike to do it. So
yes, exactly. I mean, that was one of the things that I was really appreciative when I, recognized the terrain that we were building this monastery in, immediately sort of, oh, this is great. This is because we're never going to be able to make Abhayagiri comfortable.
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be, it's because monasteries tend to develop to, and it's quite rightly so. I mean, it becomes more convenient, more well supported, and just things get more convenient. But that's certainly been the case at Abhayagiri. I mean, when we first got there, there was nothing there. So those first years were difficult. But even now, yeah, I mean, even if you want to just eat and sleep, yeah, then go back to your kuti and just not deal with people. You got to work for it, schlepping up that hill.
Walk 15, 20 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes. So those are, some of the kutis are much further
Close
than
ones,
that.
yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Luang Por, if you had to choose between having a monk who talks too much and a monk who doesn't talk at all, which would you choose? And may I apologize in advance for myself?
Well, yeah, I mean, they both have the, because sometimes with somebody who talks too much, I mean, of course it's an irritation. But sometimes with somebody who doesn't talk at all, then you're always wondering what the heck's going on underneath there. As whereas somebody who talks too much, at least you know what's going on, because it's sort of everything's out there.
And this will be the last lightning round question: is which, if you had to choose between a monk who is overly attached to ritual versus a monk who's totally dismissive of ritual, which would you choose?
Well, yeah, these are theoretical questions.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see monks who do both of these.
Yeah, I mean, monks do tend to a certain, but I think that the probably because overly attached, at least they see the benefit, and whereas that kind of dismissive attitude is tends to come from a view, and a kind of a fairly unnuanced perception of what practice is, or what Buddhism is, and sort of this is what it is, and this is all I want to do, and that that tends to be not very broad. It's really narrow, and that tends if you're too narrow in your approach to practicing the Buddha's way, you're going to limit yourself. You're going to limit your vision to what's only acceptable to your preference, and that's a limitation, because the what is possible is much greater.
I do.
Luang Por, we have a question from the audience. What should one do or contemplate when noticing a tendency for avoidance, distraction, and restlessness?
Well, I mean, there's it's just being willing to look at that one, the tendency, and I mean, we're hardwired to prefer, we prefer to be comfortable and happy rather than uncomfortable and miserable. But it's sort of recognizing the limitations of those habits and tendencies, and again, because that's it's one of the, I think it's really helpful to recollect that the Buddha, one of the ways that the Buddha described his own awakening is through the understanding of a drawback as a drawback, the benefit as the benefit, and the way out, the escape as the way out or the escape. And oftentimes because sometimes we get, say, distracted, or we get caught. So sometimes what's underneath that? Can we see the benefit in it? Can we see the drawback in it? Can we reflect carefully on what's the way out? Because that's the Buddha. It is. I mean, there's different ways that the Buddha described his awakening. Dependent origination is one. Of course, Four Noble Truths is the most common. But the Buddha also said that in terms of that experience of the world around, the experience of the internal world, seeing that which is the benefit that truly is a benefit, that is truly is a drawback, and some things are, they're not immediately black or white. Being willing to sit with that nuance for a while, because we want answers real quick, and that's part of practice or training, is being willing to sit and be patient with uncertainty. And we hate that. But it really making that conscious is really important.
Luang Por, has Ajahn Chah ever used physical force to discipline his stubborn disciples out of kindness?
No. I mean, that is anathema. Certainly, when I say that, then of course there are exceptions to that, but it's so rare that. But Ajahn Chah, well, if you think of the time that Ajahn Chah kicked Ajahn Yanadammo in the chest,
Right.
that got his attention. But that was and that's something that Ajahn Yanadammo just eternally grateful for, because Ajahn Yanadammo was just really swept up in kind of reactivity to a situation. Ajahn Chah, he says good morning to him, using English, and Ajahn Yanadammo was just so kind of happy to see the attention that Ajahn Chah gave, but he'd been upset previously with a conversation they had with a monk on Omdra, and he got into a bit of an argument and a disagreement. So he's seething with that. Then Ajahn Chah sort of pulled him out just by smiling and sort of, "Oh, good morning," and then he was, and then the evening came, and he's sitting with Ajahn Chah, and he's sitting with a bunch of other monks, and they're as is the case with no point answering questions, sitting Q&A, and then came to be evening puja, and Paul said, "Everybody, go for evening puja, chanting, meditation," and told Ajahn Yanadammo to. Of course, he wasn't Ajahn then; he was sort of young Yanadammo. He was massaging Paul's feet, and so he's just massaging his feet, and then he's sitting there. And then the chanting starts, and it's evening time, and it's just the forest is really still, and the sound of the chanting is sort of almost heavenly and ethereal, and he's just sort of sitting with Ajahn Chah's feet in his hands, and he's just starting to bliss out, and Ajahn Chah just sort of kicked him in the chest and knocked him right back. And he said, "You just follow your moods all the time. Somebody says something that you don't like, and of course, Ajahn Yanadammo didn't say anything. Luang Por Chah somehow knew what was going on, what had happened, and you get upset with a fellow monk because of that, and you're seething with anger. all I say is this, silly little good morning. When you get really happy, you sit here and you have the opportunity to be mindful in the forest, and you get bliss. You just follow your mood of bliss. You have to stop following your moods. So I mean, that is an example, but was really out of tremendous kindness, and so physical. I mean, but certainly not in any kind of. I mean, it's certainly not. Say like in say a Zen style of the stick and meditation to wake you up. So that's not at all. I mean, and it really is kind of anathema in the Thai sensibility, and much more using the situation and speech. But that is an example, but it's an incredibly kind example, and think of myself, and one time he actually stopped me and then put his hand on my chest and pulled the robe down. And it was done to, you're getting sloppy, sort of thing. And that was, and I felt that immediately. It was very sort of externally innocuous, but okay, duly noted.
I do think we have to wrap up and let you go, but
Okay.
if we can just say, you've been a guiding star for both of us, and we're so grateful for you visiting us. And we get another few days of you if people want to tune in on Saturday. Hopefully Luang Por will be there, and
Hopefully I'll be there.
yeah.
Hopefully the universe will comply.
Samsara willing.
Okay.
Luang Por,
Samsara willing, I will be there. Great.
And so we'll just paste the Zoom link into the chat if people want to join on Zoom. Luang Por won't be with us, but people can find the link there. And then if you don't see it on the chat, then feel free to go to clearmountainmonastery.org, scroll halfway down the page, and you'll find the Wednesday event listing, and you can find the Zoom link there. And we hope to see you soon.
All right. Sadhu.